Welcome to the Broker Experience. I'm your host, Rick Dulai. I'm joined today by real estate coach Ricky Carruth. Ricky, welcome to the show.
What's up, buddy? Good to be here.
It's awesome to have you here. You are a real estate coach, real estate broker, and a real estate expert. You do investments and all other kinds of things. So I think it's fair to say you're kind of expert at everything real estate.
Yeah. That's fair.
Your coaching is a free coaching program, and I came across it in about 2018, and that really caught my eye because I was like, who would give away coaching for free? Is it any good? Even it could be any good? And the thing that kind of got me was that it was really, you cut to the chase. No BS. There's no complicated systems or anything like that. You just say, you've got to talk to people.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got to be in front of them, and you have a weekly email newsletter that you send out that you do not miss. It's like every Wednesday it goes out and everybody gets it. So that consistency of talking to people and emailing them at least that once a week, you've been able to build a business where you have done more than $1 million in commissions a year. And you've done that for the past like 6 years, and you've done over 100 deals a year for like the past, 10 years or whatever.
Yeah. No, and going back to, is it worth it? I mean, trust me, I looked at every business model with real estate coaching, and, there's a lot of people that argue, well, if they're not paying anything, they're not going to value it and they're not going to do it. And so there's just different ways to look at it.
What I thought was interesting is that your free coaching is probably worth more than a lot of the paid coaching that's out there.
I get that a lot, but the point is that I could have made a paid coaching program.
Sure.
The reason I went free is because I felt like I could build a bigger name.
Right.
And then build bigger businesses on the back of that name other than a coaching business.
Right. And you do a lot of speaking and things like speaking engagement stuff. So you've been able, and then plus you've established a YouTube channel. You just hit 100,000 subscribers, which is insane. And some of your videos get over 20,000 views each video. I mean, so you've been able to build an entire YouTube business about real estate on top of your real estate business.
Yeah, there's a lot of different verticals out of the real estate niche, that I've gotten into. Making money directly off the coaching and making like a coaching business hasn't been one of them. It's been other verticals outside of that. But it's like there's the free coaching to build the brand and then build other verticals out of the brand.
I see.
Am I pinning myself into a corner where now everybody expects everything for free? I don't think so. So at all. I think for the right product and the right business opportunities that my followers would gladly buy, just about anything.
100%.
Could I come out with a course or start doing training or one-on-ones or masterminds at some point? Yeah. I'm not really worried about the backlash of, people that say, oh, you're supposed to be free and all that stuff. Not that I have any of that planned, but I do have really big, business verticals that I could launch into, from where I am. So who knows, man? I may be doing it completely backwards, completely wrong. Maybe I should have started charging from day one, this, that, the other. But I'm happy.
Yeah. And personally, I found it to be a breath of fresh air because I think the coaching that you do, first of all, it puts the onus on the agent to actually do it now because you're handing it over to them that this is exactly what I did. Now go prove that you can do the same kind of thing. So it does put the onus on the agent to actually execute. But the other thing is like, now I know what your value is, right? So now, like you said, when you do other things, I can see myself saying, oh, I know how good this is because if he gave this away for free, then what he's got in the store here is going to be well worth it.
I think so. I think there's just a lot of options now that I have a nice brand and a big following on a bunch of different platforms versus I don't feel like my brand would be, I don't feel like personally my brand would be as large if I started out charging for
Yeah.
coaching. But there again, there's an argument there. Like there's a lot of people, dude, I know people that make millions every month through their coaching businesses.
Sure.
You know, I'm friends with them. We collaborate, we share notes and, you know, talk shop, and we're an open book to each other. Several people.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting, you know, the different ways that, so are they making more money than I am? Yeah, they're making more money. Do they have big followings? Yeah. So there's an argument, you know, either way. It's just like a business for a real estate agent. No real estate agent's going to build their business exactly the same.
Sure.
You know, you could have an agent right next to me, you know, from day one, building their business exactly the same, calling the same neighborhoods, doing the same mail outs, doing the same emails and everything. And there's literally going to be two different results out of that, even though we're calling the same people, saying the same stuff,
Right.
sending the same stuff, because the slight difference in personalities and the tone and the, you know, the body language, the intentions, the, you know, everything is so different. Even if you attempted to build the exact business with two different people, it would just come out completely different.
Right.
For
That's a
those
good
two
point.
people. That's why I was never worried about sharing all my secrets for free, because even if every single person did it, which they won't, but even if they did, 100% of people did it, it still wouldn't be, you know, a fear or worry of mine that I would lose business from that, because I just feel like everybody's in their own bubble when it comes to their business. Same thing with real estate coaching. You know, no real estate coach's business is the same. You know, it's like a fingerprint. You know, you have your own identity, your own nuances, your own beliefs, you know, of how this thing needs to go.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm giving up a lot of short-term money.
Yeah, but
right?
you're playing a long game.
Yeah. I'm just playing this really incredibly long game that, you know, again, may or may not be the smartest thing in the world, but I'm enjoying playing the game the way I'm playing it. So I'm going to keep playing it this way.
Yeah. And I would say, if there is a secret to your stuff, it's that you got to work really hard.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much the baseline of any success, you know?
Yeah.
But then you have to quantify what work hard means.
Sure.
And what the definition of hard work means. You know, Warren Buffett made, what did he make? Like 50 million, let's just say, off of Coca-Cola dividends last year. And the CEO, no, he made like 500 million off of like Coca-Cola dividends, and the CEO made 50 million, something like that, right? That's just, don't quote me on exact numbers, but that's, I think I heard that somewhere. Warren Buffett made like 500 million versus the CEO made 50 million.
Yeah, and the CEO of Coca-Cola is working harder than Warren Buffett on Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In that scenario, but then what's the definition of working hard? Because if working harder means, you know, output or results, you know, per effort, right? Warren Buffett worked harder in that scenario, right? Versus the CEO who loses their mind every day, you know, working God knows how many hours, making 10 times less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then it's like, all right, what's the definition of hard work?
Right.
Right. And when the definition is like literally putting forth more energy than anybody else, right? That's the hard work that we normally speak about.
Right.
You know, but then is the definition who actually created the most results, you know, with the least amount of action, you know? So it's like, where, you know, what is your definition of hard work, you know? And, you know, how do you, I think at the end of the day, that's like what everybody wants, right? Ultimate leverage, you know, where, you know, they're crushing everybody on the result side, literally doing not, that's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reality is Warren Buffett in his early days worked his ass off.
Right. Right. And it's
And I
paying off
think that
now.
that's what happens is in the beginning, you have to put in these 15-hour days, right, to build this machine, and then the longer it goes on, the less you find yourself, doing physically, but the more results you have,
Yeah.
you know. And then you continue to become smarter and work smarter and harder, and to the point where you're just working smarter.
Right. Right. You've
But
leveraged
it's
all
the
your
stage.
early hard work to pay
Yeah.
off greater in long term.
Everybody wants to be at stage 10 where they're hardly working, but they're making all this money day
Yeah.
one, but it's like you have to go through the stages of actually putting in the effort in the beginning to build the machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Very good point.
That's like when you make cold calls, right? Everybody thinks cold calls and they're thinking, oh, I don't want to do that forever. You're not doing it forever. You do it for 3 to 5 years to build a database.
Yeah. So you got to refer.
You never have to cold call ever again a day in your life.
Right. Yeah. That's actually, so I work with one of my brokers. I help him with his team. And this morning I met with one of our buyer's agents, and she just kind of started on this. So I have her cold calling. I'm like, you got to get to this many calls every single day. Just 20 calls a day. It'll be 100 calls a week. It'll get some momentum going. In the first few days, it was like 3 calls and 6 calls, and but I was like, that's okay. Like you're going to build the momentum. It's going to take you time to get to where you can do 100 calls a day efficiently, but you got to build some momentum. So we've been kind of stepping through some of that process of just make the calls, do the reps, get used to the words coming out of your mouth, get used to the hangups and the angry people. You just got to kind of start getting past that. And once you do, things can change, and I've kind of experienced this. Like one of the things that I do is, I haven't done it so much lately because my whole business has kind of shifted. I do more rehabs and flips and things like that now. But, early on, I would make a lot of videos. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there was a reason for that because I've had it happen where I would send out a postcard and there's going to be a certain element of people that are automatically just going to react to the way someone looks. Right. So they would see my picture and immediately, but not like how I look or have some kind of preconceived idea about, what they think. And then I would get people sending it back with a little hate note or something, that would happen inevitably. I had to develop a thick skin because if I'm going to reach out to thousands of people, I'm going to hit some of these people. But when I started doing videos, it did shift. When people heard me speaking and they heard my expertise, a lot of those preconceived ideas they have about maybe about how someone might look, that kind of goes away. It wasn't 100%, but it was significantly less because now they could hear that I knew what I was talking about. I'm talking about what's happening in the market. I'm talking about how to prepare your house for sale. I'm telling you tips on what to look for in your home inspection or whatever. And people liked the information. So, and I'm articulating it clearly for them too. So I think it was important for me to make that step that I wanted to talk, and that was the key thing. So kind of when you even say that in your training, like you've got to talk to people, you've got to have conversations, that really resonated with me because I'm like, yeah, that's how you kind of connect with people. You connect with them when you talk. You can send all the postcards you want. You can send emails and text messages, but it's either face to face or on the phone where they can hear the tone of your voice and the sincerity, and your, and whatever. And that comes across.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And it doesn't really matter how you get to the conversation. That's the point I try to make a lot. Everybody's like, well, what's the best way to lead gen? I don't know what's going to be for you. Just because what was good for me doesn't mean that's going to work for you. I've been telling people like, for me, I would love to see agents like study their MLS in the morning, make calls from 9 to 12, and then make a video a day after lunch. Just make a video and work on some marketing or whatever, follow up, go to appointments, whatever, You make a video a day on top of making calls, and I don't care who you're calling, Zillow leads, for sale by owners, expired, circle prospecting, list of people that know your mom, networking events, all the neighbors in your subdivision. Like, to me, it doesn't matter. As long as you're reaching out, trying to see what you can do to help people,
right.
get them into your database, get the weekly email, end of story.
Yeah. Yeah. So another thing that really kind of caught my eye recently with you, because I usually watch your videos, like they'll come out. I'll usually check them out because there's always something. But what I really, really enjoyed this last, couple of weeks is your kind of play-by-play analysis of what's going on with this whole NAR and this home services RE/MAX, this lawsuit about sellers paying commissions. Mm-hmm. One, it's exciting to see you when you get fired up and you start going at it. The other thing is, this is historical. This is going to change our industry, whether it comes down as law or not. And I think you've pointed that out a few times. Like, it's already happening. RE/MAX already did a settlement. They're already saying you don't have to be members of NAR. Local MLSs are kind of changing the way you can enter commissions, and and brokers are changing some of their buyer contracts. So the change is already happening, and it's kind of historic. And that's actually how I reached out to you, because I was listening to you and I was like, there's some of this lawsuit that I get, that I feel like I understand and I get it. And there's other parts of it that's just ridiculous. But when I was listening to you kind of go play by play, I was like, I kind of have a different take. And you were like, hey, yeah, let's talk about it. And I was like, that's really cool, because as a realtor, and I guess I want to say this quick disclaimer, I am not an attorney. I don't give any legal advice. I don't do anything like that. And also, I am not against our commissions, but I am understanding the point that the seller is paying the buyer's side commission.
Okay.
And typically, it's supposed to be an adversarial relationship between the buyer's agent and the listing agent. Mm-hmm. The buyer's agent has a different agenda than the seller does. And when the seller's actually paying for it, it kind of feels to me like, I don't know if you're a fan of The Sopranos, but remember when Tony Soprano put a retainer on all the divorce attorneys in town, so Carmela couldn't get to any of the good divorce attorneys because they couldn't represent her, because now they had a retainer from Tony. I kind of think of it like that, like if I'm the seller and I'm paying this commission, it shouldn't go to someone that's going to be working against my interests. Now, we have this debate in our brokerage all the time with my brokers. They don't agree, because they're like, no, the listing broker pays the buyer broker. And I agree with that. That's the idea. Mm-hmm. But look up your closing statement. Look at a HUD statement.
Well, here's the thing. When you look at the way that it has to be drawn out on paper, it shows the seller paying that.
Right.
But however, it's paid out. It's paid out of what they agreed to pay the listing agent. Right. So technically, on paper, the way that you have to do it by law is it's showing the seller paying that. Right. But we all know that the seller agreed to a 6%, 5%, 4%, whatever it was. Right. It's almost like you hire a roofer to do your roof, and they quote you $12,000. You say great, and they hire another crew to do it for $8,000. The person that did the quote, collects the extra $4,000. Right. It's almost like a subcontractor, right?
Well,
kind of job.
But that is a little different, right? Because that's how. So before, it used to be there was no buyer's agency, right? Everything was seller's agency, and that was a sub-agent. A sub-agent was the seller's getting the listing agent is getting paid, and the listing agent is paying like a subcontractor to help him sell the house. But once you put buyer agency in place and you create the adversarial relationship, this is like you pay your roofer $12,000 because he says, oh yeah, you need a new roof, you're missing shingles. And then he goes and pays somebody to go remove some shingles so that you can repair the roof. I'm thinking of it. I know that's not how we do it in practice. I'm just
Yeah.
saying technically, is that why we're in this situation now?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. The lawyers found a loophole in the way that it's disclosed on closing statements, which is not how it's done in reality.
Right.
It's how it's shown on paper. And then you have a group of homeowners that don't understand that they're screwing themselves by
Yeah.
doing this. They all just want money,
Yeah.
and they see a bunch of corporations they could get into a class action lawsuit for. If there's a lady that went on the stand who her mother was an agent for 30 years,
Right.
and she says that her mother would be so proud of her for doing this.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to see is all the buyer agent fees that the mother collected
Exactly.
be repaid by the mother,
Right.
and which paid for this lady's life.
Right.
Number one, the reason she was in good schools and had a nice house and everything else, because her mother did a great job representing buyers, and those buyers could afford her representation because it was figured into the price.
Right.
Now, she said that she has kids. They're coming into the age of that they're going to be buying homes. And she feels like the way that real estate is now is an unfair practice, and that if she can do something to help her kids, and by golly, she's going to do it. But what she doesn't understand is that when her kids get to the home buying ages and they're going to buy their first house, okay, what she's doing, what she's become a part of,
Yeah.
is putting her kids in a situation where when they become that first time home buyer that barely has the down payment to put down on the house, that they're now going to have to come out of pocket extra to pay an agent to represent them for their best interest, because as a first time home buyer, they have no idea what's going on in the transaction.
Yeah.
They're clueless about, are they overpaying? Should they put this in the contract? Should they put that in the contract? Like looking out for their best interest all the way through.
Right.
Even if they have to go higher, even if you say, oh, well, 3% is still too high for that, they can just hire a lawyer for a couple grand. You still have to pay a couple grand.
Right. Right.
Like you're putting them in a position that now they have to pay out of pocket to make sure they don't get screwed on a deal when they could barely afford the down payment. When in the current system, right, the seller pays 5-6%, and that incentivizes all the agents in the area, in the market, to find a buyer for you. So you can say that the buyer agent doesn't have the seller's best interest at heart, which of course they're going to be trying to get the best deal for their buyer, but that's what you have your agent for, that's representing you. Right? To make sure that you're getting the best deal possible. And guess what? At the end of the day, when you sign the paper, you're happy with the deal that was put in front of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't do the deal.
Right. Actually, that was a weird one too, because that lady, first of all, I was having a very hard time really understanding what she was doing.
Well, she sold 4 houses in her life and bought 5.
Right.
Okay. So when she bought the 5, she got full representation without any money out of her pocket.
Right.
That was figured into the purchase price. Right.
Yeah, she
so
benefited.
she got 5. She paid for 4 to sell. By the way, you don't have to use an agent to sell.
That's right. That's true.
Right. You can do it on your own. You can get a discount broker. You can do whatever you want to do. You don't. This isn't mandatory, and it's fully negotiable. Number one, and so she's sitting here. She sold 4 houses. She bought 5 houses. She needs to tell her buyer agent on those 5 to give her commissions back. And what's going to happen is that sellers aren't going to sell for 3% less than appraised value. Right? This isn't going to reduce home prices, right? This isn't inflating home prices. Home prices are whatever appraised value, what somebody's willing to pay. There's calculations of how things appraise and so on and so forth based on the contract in hand. And does this appraise? Right. But, sellers aren't going to say, okay, well, we're not paying the buyer agent fee anymore. we'll take 3% less than appraised value. No, they're
Right,
the
but over
sellers are
time,
gonna-
though, the market will make an adjustment. So house prices may not go up as much over time, and now because that kind of comes out of the, you can see it with FSBOs, right? For sale by owners, they sell for less.
That's just because they don't understand how to negotiate, and they're not get. See, they have no representation.
Yep.
It's not because the home's worth less.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. But that market is driving the price down because they don't know how to negotiate, and if they did, it could keep the prices.
Well, the
up.
sellers are still going to have representation.
The way things are going.
Still going to have it. The sellers are still going to have an agent that makes sure you're getting the maximum price that you can get. Right. The buyers aren't going to have an agent if they can't afford one.
Right. That's true.
Right?
But isn't that the same plaintiff that NAR didn't cross-examine? Like,
Why
why
didn't
they? I didn't understand that.
Well, the Home Services of America lawyer, I believe, is the one that cross-examined that lady, cross-questioned them, whatever it's called. And from the notes that I read, from what I gather, it's almost like they the other lawyers from the other defendants, NAR and Keller Williams and so forth. I want to believe, I'm not in the courtroom, but I want to believe that the cross-examination by the Home Services of America lawyer was good enough.
Oh, I see.
Where NAR and Keller Williams were probably going to get up there and say the exact same thing, and it's almost like, okay, we've made our point. We've made our point. This lawyer basically, made all the same points we were going to make anyway. We'll just let it rest with that. So I don't think it was a negligence play, or maybe they should have kind of play
and just drive the point home or something.
There was one when I was thinking, man, why in the world? There was another either it was one of the plaintiffs or it was somebody that hit the stand and they didn't cross-examine them, and I was like, my goodness.
I don't remember exactly who either, but anyway. I keep feeling. I mean, it's hard to know because, like you said, we're not in the courtroom. But I keep feeling like why aren't they saying this and why aren't they saying that? But one thing though, I was thinking about is a solution to the problem that technically on paper the seller is paying. Why not just pay the whole commission on the closing documents, on the HUD or whatever, to the listing broker, and then the listing broker just cut the check to the buyer's broker? Wouldn't that solve that problem?
Nah, because then it's just a referral fee, right? It's just a referral fee. The check would actually go to the listing brokerage, not the listing agent. It would go to the listing broker, and then when the broker cuts the agent of a check from there, now it's just a referral fee, okay? And now that other agent didn't actually represent the buyer, right? I mean, you can't pay a referral fee to an agent who represented the buyer. Okay,
so that's why it's like that. You're saying that's why it's technically like that because otherwise,
that's why it's technically like that. Because
in real world, that's what we're saying we're doing. Look, I'm getting paid this much money, and I'm going to offer this much to anybody that brings me a buyer, and it's going to be published in the MLS. That's the real world thing.
Like the sellers are shooting themselves in the foot in many different ways. Number one, they're not going to have representation as a buyer when they buy a home. Okay, unless they pay out of pocket. That's what they're saying they want.
Yeah, that's what they're saying they want. Yeah,
we want to pay out of pocket for our buyer's agent. Big mistake. Number one. Number two, prices aren't going to come down because of this. They think it's overinflating prices.
Right.
No, it's not. Things are still going to go for appraised values, right? So they're shooting themselves in the foot in so many different.
But you can see that like a buyer's commission on average though is probably going to come down because more buyers agents are going to be willing to say, "Hey, I'll do it for $1,500." I'll do it for.
And here's the thing though, there aren't going to be. You're going to have buyer agents emerge. You're going to have a lot of people quit the industry. Buyer agents will emerge that only exclusively work with buyers that take retainers up front.
Right.
Blah blah blah. But home prices aren't going to go down. Okay. You've got buyers who aren't going to be represented.
Yeah, a lot more buyers are going to do it on their own now, right? So yeah,
Well,
that's
and they're not going to be represented, and you're also going to have less incentive for these professional agents who are really good at what they do. You're going to have there's going to be no incentive for them to actually bring buyers to the listings, because you're only going to have the few buyers who are willing to pay retainers or whatever up front, who these agents are incentivized by the buyer to bring to listings.
But do you think that might be better for
the buyers in the market?
But do you think that might be better for buyers agents in general? Because we know like 90% of the work is done by like 10% of the agents, right? So most of the agents out there, we know they're not making a lot of money. They're not. But do you think it might help them? Because now if you're collecting let's say a $500 retainer, you showed somebody a bunch of houses and they ended up not buying, at least you got paid for the time you spent with them. You got something for it instead of nothing, because that's kind of the thing that we're running this gamble.
There'll be a lot less buyers that do that, though. There's going to be a lot of buyers who just go directly to listing agents.
Right.
And they're not going to pay a buyer agent fee because they don't have to. They're going to think, oh, I can do this on my own. They're going to get screwed because they don't have anybody looking out for them in this situation that they're not used to. They don't know all the little, nooks and crannies. Now, they can go hire a lawyer to kind of look over everything for them, but they still got to deal with setting appointments to see houses and dealing with different listing agents. Right. It's a lot easier process when you have one contact that sets up all the appointments, negotiates for you, looks for your best interests, so on and so forth. But it's going to create twice the work for listing agents, because now a lot of buyers are going to go right to the listing agent. Sure. And the listing agents, let's just say like the listing agent side commission goes down to 3%. Right. But then now they're showing the properties too. Yeah. They're going to, you used to get on both sides and get 5%. See, that's the thing. You get hired as a listing agent to sell a property for, say, 6%. Well, if the buyer comes directly to you, or if one of your clients buys the property, guess what? You get 6%.
Yeah.
It's not like you get less because there wasn't a buyer agent involved. You get all of it. So the seller was perfectly fine with paying you 5 or 6%, if you brought the buyer. What does it matter if I get less if someone else represents the buyer, right? It's just questions, right?
Yeah, do you guys have variable commission rates in Alabama? Like in Michigan, we have to disclose if we're doing a variable commission rate. That's like I take the listing at 6%, but if the buyer comes and I bring the buyer and I'm getting both sides, I'm doing it for 4.5 now. And we have to disclose that we're doing a variable rate. We don't have to disclose the amount so that other buyers agents out there writing offers, they know that they might be competing against an offer that costs less to the seller, so they can write an offer accordingly. Do you guys have that there in Alabama?
I mean, we do it. We put it on the listing agreement. If I bring the buyer, I'll do it for 5 or whatever.
I see.
We don't have to say that to we don't have to put that on MLS or say it, tell people that are bringing offers. We do it. And there's times when we don't do it, and we get and we represent the buyer and we get the whole thing.
Yeah. We do that too. Usually if it's negotiated ahead of time, we have to disclose that to other agents and through the MLS is what I meant. But
no, we don't have to disclose it through MLS or whatever. But they did some study, which I don't know if I really agree with, but they said 70% of listings that offer less than 2% buyer agent commission never sell. 70% of the ones that offer less than 2%. If that's in fact true, right? Like they did the study, like the higher the buyer agent fee that's advertised goes, the more percentage of those properties sold in less time. Yeah. So, you get all the way down to 0 buyer agent commissions. I mean, you just run into a lot of problems, man. What you have is you have now your listing agent doing twice the work for half the money. Half the money that we're making doing twice the work they were doing.
Right.
Okay. And what happens is you get too spread out. See, the way the model is now, it's like you have help. You have help from the other side, showing the properties, writing the offers. Now, as a listing agent, on some of these deals where there won't be a buyer agent involved, you're going to have to do the whole thing from top to bottom. Well, you can only handle so many deals,
Right.
especially when you add twice the work in there. So now the market becomes incredibly inefficient. The sellers aren't getting the service they really deserve.
Yeah.
Right. And the buyers definitely aren't getting the service that they deserve.
I mean, it definitely feels like they're fixing something that's not broke. Right.
Well,
but,
no model is perfect.
Sure.
Okay. So you look at like the UK and Australia, their prices are higher than ours.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they do this. They have just one side. The buyer pays their agent if they want an agent. Most of them don't. A lot of them go right to the listing agent. The listing agent is getting like 3%.
Yeah.
And their prices are way higher than the US.
Yeah.
Okay. So like this whole thing about inflated prices due to the commissions is garbage when you look at these other countries, and where they stand.
Yeah, they have a different mortgage structure too. Like we're lucky in America, we have that 30-year fixed. Everybody else in the world is trying to figure out how to do that, and that actually helps us with our pricing. I know in Canada, they do a similar thing. You can't really get a 30-year fixed mortgage. So what happens is you have an ARM, and then everybody's constant competition to refinance before the ARM expires and the rates go up, and that drives the prices sky high. You go to Toronto or something, I mean, the property values are incredibly high compared to the US, just across the border,
Yeah. Yeah. No system's perfect, right? So like up there, prices are higher, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they don't have 30-year fixed. So some of the internet gurus say that the 30-year fixed is the problem in the U.S. That's why we have low inventory and prices are going up so high and this, that, and the other. And it's like, okay, well, you got a point. Inventory is low because people are locked into lower rates, and prices have jumped up because of that. You've got some points there. However, are you saying that you want to go to the system of some of these other countries where people literally lose their homes because in 5 years their mortgage payment doubles? I would rather have a country that everybody is locked in, so they choose, right? They can still sell the house. They can make a lot of money if they sell the house. Will they have to get into something else at a higher rate? Yes. If they don't pay cash. And they can also buy down rates here. We got new construction where you can get really low rates compared to where the market is. There's other options other than just saying, okay, I'll take 8%. Yeah. But would we rather have this system where people are, aren't getting kicked out of their homes and mortgage payments aren't doubling in 5 years? And by the way, our prices are still lower than these other countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't have a whole lot of inventory. Or would we want to have a market where people are getting foreclosed on left and right because their mortgage payments are doubling? They're getting kicked out of their homes, and rent's probably going through the roof in these other countries because of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with the model we have now with this not dual agency, but this, coupling the commission and everything. Is it perfect where every, body looks at that and says, oh, this is the greatest thing ever? No. But what's the alternative, right? Having no buyer agent commission, having buyers that don't know what they're doing, first-time home buyers barely afford their down payment, go directly to the listing agent who's only looking out for the seller. That's the best scenario, who may or may not be getting screwed on price. They don't know. They don't do this. Even when you sell a property, you make a bunch of money and you have the money to pay a buyer agent. Do you still want to come out of your pocket for that, or you don't want it figured into the price?
Right.
And again, prices aren't going to go down because of this.
Yeah.
Appraised values are going to stay where they are, continue to go up because the seller still has representation of an agent who's going to make sure that seller is getting the highest price that they possibly can.
Sure.
Right? So it's like, think about what you're doing here.
Yeah, I think to your point earlier too, that the 30-year fixed mortgage, it's not causing the problem. It may be part of the reason why sellers aren't selling and we have low inventory and prices have gone up, but it's not the cause of the problem. Cause is very clear. We don't have enough inventory. We're not building enough new homes, and people are not wanting to move and sell for various reasons. They're settled with their jobs. They're working from home now. So many people are working from home ever since, COVID. So the need to move is not as urgent. And so the demand is very high, supply is very low, and prices rise. And, I think that's another thing too. Like, thinking through like some of the logic that they're using, I felt like some of the things they're trying to address seem valid to me, but the way they're going about it or what they're it's like they have no knowledge on how the industry actually works. They're just trying to come up with these solutions without actually understanding the problems. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I want to get your take on this. Like, what do you say to the argument of, because the listing agent is negotiating the whole commission, the buyer has no say in the negotiation of what their agent is getting under the current system. Under the new system, they would actually be negotiating their commissions with their buyer's agent. The listing agent would be negotiating with the seller. But today, the decision is kind of made by the seller and the listing agent on what the commissions are going to be. The buyer's agent, the collusion and conspiracy that they're talking about is not like they all sat in a back room and decided, hey, what we'll do is we'll get 3%. It's just kind of what's happened in the market is it averages at around 2.8% or whatever. So, but the buyer is completely out of the picture.
Yep.
You know, what do you think about that? What do you think about that argument that the buyer should?
I think it's a great system that we have right now, where the listing agent does a good job to negotiate the commission for both sides. And I think it should be split equally, 50-50.
Yeah. So, you've been saying that lately too, because a lot of times if someone lists a house for like 5%, the listing agent will maybe take less, 2%, and then give 3%. Sometimes it goes the other way.
The listing agent will take more.
Yeah, and then that's what I was about to say. Is like sometimes it's the other way. The listing agent will keep the 3 and just pay out 2.
I've very rarely seen where the listing agent gives the buyer agent more. You know, and these listing agents that take more, they'll argue with you till the end. Yeah. That they deserve more because they have marketing and they have more expenses, and all the buyer does is pay for gas to drive around. Are you kidding me? So number one, I've listed 1,000 properties. And I paid, I don't know, probably $100 or something a piece for those. if you average out what I've spent on, phone numbers and postcards I've sent or whatever, I probably average like $100, like literally nothing to get these listings. So what are you talking about? And are you saying that buyers don't cost people money? You know, of course, I'm a grassroots, like I can go and just find people. I can find clients for free, right?
Yeah.
It's easy for me to just go out there and do that. Anybody can, but not everybody does. So you can get buyers for free, sure. But most people pay a ton of money for these buyers, and they're paying Zillow 40% on the back end and blah, blah. So you can get listings for free. The fact that you decided to spend a lot of money to advertise was your choice. Right. Same thing with buyers. You can get buyers for free, but a lot of people choose to spend a lot of money on advertising to get those buyers. It goes both ways, and people that say that, they're just greedy. I'll say this though. So my brokers, Rob and Chuck, they're the ones that I usually do this podcast with. They've kind of always taught us that. They've always said, like, if you're going to cut your commission, pay out the 3%. It's everything's cleaner, everybody's happier, and then because inevitably what happens is some agent, if you cut the buyer's commission, the agent will try to put the commission into the contract, then the purchase agreement and then it's like you're making yourself a party to a contract that's between buyers and sellers, and there's all kinds of legal implications of this. Well, I'm the same way. So, and it just depends on your market. What's customary? So, in my market for a long time, it's 5 or 6. Yeah. And it's always been split 50-50. So I'm kind of came up in the business accustomed to this 50-50 split. And so when it's 5, it's 2.5, 2.5. And that was just like the norm. And so if you get 6 though, it's 3 and 3. Okay. And so it was either 3 or 2.5, 3 or 2.5, right? And so I would never go below 2.5. So I took listings at 4.5, and I took 2, and I put 2.5 on MLS. I took listings at 3.5 on some of my really big clients on some big deals. Sure. They did multiple millions worth of deals. I took 3.5 a couple times. Guess what? I took 1, and I gave the buyer agent 2.5. Yeah. So I value the buyer agent so much
Yeah.
Right. Because like if they aren't, and listing agents are like, well, we have all the power, because if there wasn't for the buyer agent, they just come straight to us. Yeah. It comes straight to you. And now you're showing them.
Now you
Now
do
you're
all the
dealing
work.
with them. Now you're working them.
Yeah.
Now you're doing twice the work rather than just sitting on the couch, which is what you're doing now. Right. And you don't have the power of the leverage of, and look, maybe their client, that maybe the buyer is really super loyal to this specific agent that they work with. And so,
Yeah.
no, they're not going to come to you.
Right.
If they're 100% loyal to this other agent, they're not going to come to you. They're going to come through a buyer agent, their agent that represents them and everything. They're never going to do a deal without this agent. So then now you're up against that. No.
So I think that's the problem. Like with the lawsuit, the issue is still, it's like technical issues. It's like, because on paper it shows that the seller is paying the buyer's agent,
Yep.
The technical issue of how compensation gets split. What they don't understand is it's being negotiated all the time. How many times have I had a seller that's also going to be a buyer? So I'm cutting my commission for them because I know I'm going to pick up more on the buyer side. And that system, it like feeds the beast. It keeps it going so that people will go out and be motivated and do more business. I can help my seller sell their house better because I know I'm going to be able to pick up commissions when I sell them something too.
That's another thing to think about, right? You represent a seller, and now they want to buy something.
Yeah.
But they got to pay you out of their pocket to represent them, right? They have to pay you out of their pocket. It's like that lady that sold 4 houses and bought 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So now her agent is sitting there. Now if the seller doesn't want to pay that buyer agent commission, right, when they buy, now you as the buyer, you as their listing agent, when they're selling the property that they're going to sell before they buy, now you don't really have anything to really go by to negotiate a lower rate there. Because they're telling you straight up, we're not going to use a buyer agent when we buy because we're going to have to pay out of our pocket, right?
Yeah, so
and
you
now
pay me my full listing commission now.
Now it just muddies up the waters, right? It just muddies up the entire thing for the relationship between you and that client.
Right.
It muddies up the whole thing. It's just muddied up, and now you're in this situation where it's like, okay. But listen, if that is the way that the new rules of the game turn into,
right,
then bring it on. Like,
We'll
you want
adapt.
to use me to sell, but you're not going to use me to buy. Great. Let me know when you want to sell. Let me know when you want to sell the one you're buying.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll adapt. Essentially what you're saying is this industry is going to adapt and the cream will kind of rise to the top. And
do you want me to, listen, pay me $2,500 and I'll look over the contract and make sure everything's on the up and up. Who knows where this is going?
Right.
I was talking about it on the video yesterday, how a lot of people think this could go into an appeal if the plaintiffs win, which, by the way, closing arguments happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And the jury is deliberating right now as we speak. If the plaintiffs win this, and are awarded money and everything, everybody says, well, it's not going to change anything because the defendants are going to appeal this and it's going to get drug out in court for years. And it would take so long to get to a point where this is a law or that this is something that changes the way that we operate. No, not at all. What could very easily happen is these big corporation brokerages could say, oh my gosh, I don't want to pay $50 million. Or listen, if the plaintiffs win, there's $4 billion on the line for this.
Yeah. It's like 1.7 billion.
1.7 billion in damages.
Yeah.
And then another 2 point whatever in what they call treble damages.
Yeah.
So it's like a $4 billion thing going on right now. And so if they win and they're awarded anything, any kind of billions with any kind of number in front of the B, then these other big corporations are going to get so scared.
Yeah.
This is something that could happen. They could get so scared that they make it a brokerage policy. We don't pay buyer agents out of the listing site commission at all.
Yeah.
Now that's something that can happen. Like brokerages could put policies in in an instant. And now you're actually looking at a situation where things actually change with the snap of a finger, and now everything gets flipped upside down. That would really hurt the top and bottom line for those big corporations. So then you have to ask yourself, well, if they were to get into a suit, they could just settle out for $50 million, and maybe that's a lot less than what they would lose if they didn't know. In the settlement of the $50 million, they're going to have to more than likely say something to the effect of what this means anyway, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
actually, you're 100% right about this. It's not even that it could happen. It's already happened. There's changes in that direction. We're already talking about updating our buyer contract and our listing contract to have language specifically disclosing that all commissions are negotiable, so there's little changes already happening, and MLS is already tweaking their rules a little bit. So the changes are already there. But I think what's happening though is, like I said about that technical thing about it's coming out of seller proceeds, maybe it should just go into an escrow from the seller's proceed, and then from the escrow you pay. If you need to be technical about it, if that's what their whole concern is. The other thing they don't like is that how buyer's agents say, well, we work for you for free because we get paid by the sellers. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, you don't work for free. Well, that's not a realtor's fault. This is just real world how it's set up.
It's kind of true, right? The way it's worded, a class action lawyer is going to say, bingo, let me make millions of dollars here.
Right.
But it's kind of true. They do work for free from the buyer.
Yeah.
And the seller does pay them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's more so the listing agent. So, but the thing is people are like, well, the buyer's the one bringing all the money to the table, so they're actually paying the buyer agent. No, I don't believe that. Okay. My opinion is that seller is going to sell for the appraised value as much as they can sell for, regardless if the commission's 3 or 6, if there's a buyer agent involved or not. So the buyer is going to pay the appraised value unless they negotiate a deal or unless somebody's motivated. Just if they're paying retail value,
sure,
right? It's like a builder. Let's take builders, for example. Builders don't normally negotiate their price.
Right.
Okay. You think the builder, once this is all said and done, is going to say, okay, we're going to start taking 3% less than the appraised value because there's no buyer agent involved? Right. Absolutely not. They're going to continue to sell it for the highest price possible that somebody's willing to pay. And that price has nothing to do with how much a buyer agent gets paid, if a buyer agent is involved, none of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's even going back to the for sale by owner example. For sale by owners think they're going to save the commission, so they put it up by themselves, right? They think they're still putting it on the market at market value. They're just trying to save the commission. But what happens when a buyer comes along and wants to buy it? They want to save a commission also, so they offer less on your property because they want to save the commission, not have the seller save. Two people can't save the same dollar. Right. Uh-huh. So it's the same kind of thing. Exactly. It's just shifting it from one place to the other, mm-hmm. and then saying, okay, this is now legal and this was antitrust violation.
And then if this happens and there's some kind of mortgage product that comes out to figure the buyer agent
what I
into
thought
the
might
loan,
happen.
Okay. Yeah. Guess what? We're still selling it for appraised value. Right. And the buyer agent's still getting the whatever they're getting, the 3%, 2.5%, whatever it is, off of the appraised value.
Right.
So now if the property doesn't appraise because we added the 2%, 2.5%, 3% on top of the purchase price and what the seller wanted to net, you think the seller is going to say, okay, I'll Now, in certain situations, yeah, they'll come down, they'll concede, they'll say, okay, it appraised for $5,000 less, so I'll just come down to that. Since that's my only option here, and I'll sell. Sure, but that's not what they wanted. But that puts us right back where we are now. Is the listing agent getting 2.5 to 3, the buyer agent getting 2.5 to 3, the purchase price being the appraised value, and 5 to 6% coming off the top going to the agents. If you do the financing mortgage product, where that doesn't change anything, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
We're right back where we were. You're just figuring it into the loan rather than figuring it out of what the listing agent negotiated with the seller.
Yeah, but that's my point. I feel like all they're doing is forcing us to recategorize everything so that it's now legal.
Well, you know
Essentially,
what?
we'll keep
I'd love to
working the
ask
way we work.
plaintiffs exactly what they are asking us to do, right? That's what I'm unclear on. Are you actually asking us plaintiffs? Because right now, what they're trying to prove in court is that there was a conspiracy between the defendants. But my question to the plaintiffs are, well, what exactly is it that you are asking us to do? Right? Do you just not want, do you want all buyers? I mean, I haven't heard this directly from a plaintiff. Do the plaintiffs want all buyer agents to be paid from the buyer directly? Is that actually what they want?
You know, it's funny because just today, this morning, the updates on Inman, they said what the verdict form for the jury, what they need to establish. And it said, according to the plaintiff's proposed jury verdict form, jurors will have to decide whether they believe a conspiracy existed.
Yeah.
And if they do, whether that conspiracy raised, inflated, or stabilized broker commission rates paid by home sellers. If the jurors answer yes to that latter question, they must then say whether they believe each of the defendants knowingly and voluntarily joined the conspiracy with the purpose of furthering its goals. You know, the problem here is just this is all BS. But what it's done is it's already changed how we're going to do business. Everybody's going to look at this different. We're all going to protect ourselves moving forward. All the big brokerages, everybody's going to look at it as how to avoid liability in the future. And they're just going to make changes, forcing us to recategorize stuff. But in effect, we continue working the way we always did.
I think so. I think we continue working the way we are. I think it's going to be kind of a choice for the sellers. It's kind of like right now they have a choice: sell by owner, sell through an agent, right? I think they're going to have this other option, which they've really always had. Well, not really. I mean, you had to put at least $1 for the buyer agent in MLS.
Yeah, they changed that too, though. Now, right?
Now you can put $0.
Yeah, because they claim that 0 is a dollar value.
Now there's this new option that sellers have where you say, hey, I'm just going to pay my listing agent 3%. I'm not going to pay anything on the buyer agent side, right? So they're going to have a third option. So we're going to see that in the market, I think. I think we're going to see, we're already seeing it, like you say. I think we're seeing for sale by owners still. Yeah. We're seeing people that are getting full commission still and offering 2.5 to 3 or whatever to the buyer agent. And then I'm literally getting messages from agents saying that they have sellers who just want to pay them 3%. You know what we always call that? A pocket listing.
Yeah, that's a pocket listing.
Right. That doesn't go on MLS.
Right.
Right. It's just something you know about. If you know of a buyer, bring it. We'll sell for this price. We'll pay you 3% if you bring us a buyer. Yeah. It's almost like they're paying you the buyer agent commission to bring a buyer. They're the listing agent almost. Yeah. And that's in that scenario. And, right now, before all this came up, I made this point, for years that agents in today's world, with the way everything's set up, is really only doing half their job. They're finding a seller, they're putting it on MLS, and then just going to sleep and waiting on another agent to find the buyer. Yeah. Or they find the buyer and they just look on MLS every day, waiting on another agent to list the property their buyer might want. Their job is to connect buyers and sellers, and they're just finding a seller and waiting on another agent to find the buyer, or finding the buyer and waiting on another agent to find the seller. So really, agents have really only been doing half the job, which is fine because it's efficient. Because if you're working 40 hours a week, doing that 50% of the job, leveraging the other 1,000 agents in your market to do the other half, that's probably smart. But I think what we're moving towards here is where agents actually have to do 100% of the job, right? They have to find the seller, and then they're going to have to find the buyer in a lot of these cases moving forward. Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting. Yeah.
Here, just to maybe start wrapping things up here, tell you something that I tried once. My partner Chuck, actually, he's one of my brokers too. We have other businesses together, but he had told me this. This is maybe 15 years ago, I tried this. He said, go around your neighborhood and offer to list everybody's house for free.
Okay.
I go, free? I was like, what do you mean list it for free? He's like, the listing is free. You get paid if you get a buyer. So I tried it. I was like, you know what? Okay, it's because it's kind of buyer brokerage in disguise, right? So I went around, I knocked on doors. I said, hey, I have this special program I'm running this summer. I list your house for free, and not a single person would take me up on it because they all felt like there was a catch. There's some kind of catch here. And I was like, there's no catch. It's only if I bring a buyer, you're going to pay 3%. But for the listing side, I'm doing it for free. Couldn't get anybody to catch, to bite on that. But that's essentially where we're going now. What you just said is this idea that you're going to get listings and you're going to get buyers and you're going to do all the work and you're going to be doing it for less commissions now, essentially.
Yeah, what you're talking about is almost like the Redfin model, right? 1% listing fee. We'll list your house for 1%,
right?
But then they're actually listing it for 4%.
Right.
They're giving the buyer agent 3%.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't heard them negotiate on their commissions.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
It sounds pretty fixed.
Exactly. Where are they?
Well, they got out of this thing, man.
Yep.
They dipped out, told NAR, see you later.
Yep. Yep.
All that good stuff.
Anyway, Ricky, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your insights. It was awesome talking to you and kind of getting your take on all of this. And again, I love all the stuff you do. Keep it up. And I'm a fan. I'll be following you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thank you very much.